What is going on, everybody, and welcome on in to the Philadelphia Eagles edition of the Cleveland Browns pregame show here on the OBR streaming network. The OBR is your home for everything Cleveland Browns here in the city of Cleveland, the oldest and the largest independent Browns site in all of Cleveland. Get over to the OBR.com and make sure you are subscribed. And whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitch, X, wherever you're watching us, shout out to you guys. Welcome on in live to the pregame show. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you follow. Make sure you give it a like. Tell your friends, all that stuff as we get you ready today for the Cleveland Browns to try to get right. But the task is tall. It is a tough one ahead. The Browns in Philadelphia, kickoff in just about an hour. The Browns taking on the Eagles, and we're going to break it all down for you and get you ready for that game. With you as always, I'm your host, Michael Keefe. Joining me on the show here today so far, first of all, it's Casey Kinnaman. A weird couple weeks for Casey, a little bit of a tough couple weeks. And, man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Still got electric, so, that's a bonus. You're starting to learn to live like that again. And just trying to keep it positive, and you said it's a tough matchup today. You got a real tough task in front of you, but going forward, they're all going to be like that, so this is that stretch. This is where you needed to be hitting on all cylinders to really get into the meat of your schedule, and we'll see how it goes today.
Yeah, we're going to find out if they have any cylinders. This is going to be great.
Yep.
Also joining me today, Jacob Roach. Jacob, man, how are you feeling this morning?
Hey, man, the guards are in the ALCS, so there's absolutely nothing that can ruin my mood, not even the Browns. So that's where we're at.
What a spectacular day in Cleveland yesterday.
Yeah.
I was going to start with a joke about the Guardians and this just being the Guardians ALCS preview show, but I figured let's talk about the Browns.
Yeah, I guess.
If we have to.
All right, boys. So listen, the Cleveland Browns with one win on this season, 1-4 coming into this game against the Eagles. The Eagles 2-2, and they're coming off their bye. The last time we saw the Philadelphia Eagles on the field, they were getting their doors blown in by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I think the big story, if we're looking at the Eagles for this one, guys, is that they get the bye. So they've sat on an ugly loss for 2 weeks, and now they're healthy. We haven't seen A.J. Brown. Lane Johnson's been out. Devontae Smith has been out. These are guys that are now returning and playing for the Eagles. So kind of a little bit of a double whammy of they've had to sit on that loss for 2 weeks and let that steep, and now they're healthier than they've been all season. So, guys, give me your impression of the Philadelphia Eagles coming into this game.
Well, usually you're kind of bummed if you have a really early bye. You're like, oh, man, you'd rather your bye be somewhere in the middle. But when you're banged up like that, missing your two premier playmakers on the outside, your best offensive lineman, that bye kind of comes at a good time. And then, of course, coming off an ugly loss the way they did against Tampa, to be able to get 2 weeks to kind of prepare for this game, like it's all trending bad for the Browns, as far as where the Eagles are at, getting healthy finally. Obviously got that bad taste in your mouth wanting to get it out. They're coming back home, and if you look at their strengths, Saquon Barkley, I mean, to me, it was the underrated signing of the offseason, just based on the way they like to run the football, the way the league is always going to be trending towards what quarterbacks can do and the passing game. But if you look at what Philadelphia has been, it's been their running game. Now, their quarterback used to play a larger part in that, but they didn't have a premier back. They were kind of piecing it together with, plan Bs. Saquon is A1. I mean, he's legit. 6 yards a carry so far this season, 435 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He's as dangerous as it gets, and this is a porous run defense for Cleveland. So for me, that is the focal point. That's the first thing I look at in this game. If you're the Browns, that's all your efforts have to be towards stopping Saquon and is keeping him from just eating this game. The Browns they're at the bottom of the league, if you want to look at it that way, in all these major rush defense categories. But the one that strikes me is they've given up 8 explosive runs of 20 yards or more. Saquon's a guy who can rip off 20-yarders. And then those plays, those are huge. So the focal point is stopping Saquon and trying to make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm.
I'll flip it onto the other side just for, even things out a little bit. But you've got a defense though that you should be able to exploit. I'm really sick and tired of saying that, and then the offense not doing anything. They made the Commanders last week look like the 2000 Ravens, like out there just absolutely dominant. I couldn't even tell you who any of their defensive backs are. And I think a lot of people outside of Washington would say that, and you're like, okay. But, maybe the Browns, maybe something happens, some changes on the offensive line. They said Jack Conklin's active today. They didn't say if he was starting, but they are putting Michael Dunn at right guard over Zach Zenter. So maybe some adjustments. And, of course, Ethan Posick is out. So maybe some changes, some adjustments trying to improve the offensive line. There was talk on Friday. We heard it on Cleveland Browns Daily where they kind of hinted at going back to Stefanski's offense as opposed to what we've seen the first how many times? 5 games that they've, how bad they've looked in that offense. Maybe they go back to the traditional offense and the offensive line improves, because you've got a chance against this defense to put up some passing numbers. Like, there's not excuses in this game. And if you can't do it today, then you just can't do it.
Well, guys, and you brought it up, and I think the kind of the big talking point story, if we want to call it that, that happened basically, I think it was Friday, was that report, Zagura and I think Bishop were talking about. I think the way they said it was like scrapping the play sheets that had Ken Dorsey's offense, and just taking it back to Kevin Stefanski's offense. So when you hear that, and again, take that for what it's worth, but when you hear that, and let's say that was the game plan for them during this week of preparation and getting ready for this Eagles game, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you that they're going to take the Ken Dorsey stuff out of the offense and take it back to what that Kevin Stefanski offense is? What's that going to look like?
It just feels like a failure to launch. I mean, you spend all offseason retooling that and bringing all these guys in and reshuffling the deck on that side of the ball to how much different can it look? What you're going to spread everyone out. We're going to play in shotgun, and then you see what it looks like, and it looks like first day of practice, and here we are going into week 6.
Yeah.
So you can go back to what you consider your bread and butter. It's like, then why were we spinning our wheels all off season? You could have stayed with that, and to me, it's kind of spoke to the backup quarterback that they went and signed, who can do all those things that Stefanski loves to do: turn us back to the defense, play action, boot, and hit explosives. And it's like, okay, well, you got a guy who can do all those things. I don't know how much of that 4 can do. I don't know. This whole operation was about getting this guy comfortable and being in shotgun and seeing the field and spreading everything out, and it's just not working. So if you're going to scrap it, scrap the whole thing, the whole operation, and go to the guy who can run that style of offense effectively. Now, that's super messy. That's a big messy conversation, and I don't know what it takes to get there. But it's. I mean, you got David Njoku's back. He's active. I know there's a little bit of a scare last week coming back from the ankle. Then he hurts his knee. Wasn't on the injury report. Hopefully everything's good to go there. But if you're truly going to run Kevin Stefanski's offense, you're going to need more than one tight end. That's for sure. So I don't know what this looks like. I do think this, though. If Jack is active, you're going to see more jumbo personnel probably, because you just have more healthy offensive linemen. I know you're down James Hudson, but I'll take that trade off to get Conklin back. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much truth is to scrapping it entirely. I don't know if that's really even possible in 1 week, but we might see it start to steer that direction.
I think that trying to manufacture some cheap yardage is what they're trying to do. Some of those, Casey, you talk about the boot and the play action, and the things that I always think of when I think of the Stefanski, Shanahan, Kubiak, that kind of offense is on first down when you get the whole offense going one way to the left and you boot to the right and there's a tight end standing by himself at the line of scrimmage and he gets you 6 yards. Easy yardage like that, plays like that, where it's like, hey, let's get ourselves above, ahead of the chains, on target to get this first down, instead of being in 3rd and 8 all the time. Like, I think you see more under center. If you are scrapping it, you're going to be more under center, and you're going to put an emphasis on running the football inside the tackles and sort of things where you're kind of going into the interior because you're trying to get things on, spreading everything out wide, running wides, all these. It's just not working right now. So you get under center, do some more stuff under center, manufacture some cheap yards, some crossing routes, some dump offs, let people move with the ball in their hands, and just put an emphasis on letting the playmakers make plays as opposed to asking the quarterback to make all the plays.
Because this has been the breaking news story of the week for the Browns, in that Kevin Stefanski, they expect him to kind of reinstall his style of offense. It made me think, do we think this is maybe one area where we can and again, we could talk about flaws with everybody, but do we think maybe this was an area this is a real learning experience for Kevin Stefanski this offseason? Because it really felt like the intentions out of Stefanski were good here. That like, hey, maybe what I'm doing is working okay, but it could be better. So I'm gonna bring in a new voice, and I'm gonna bring in somebody that's gonna help with this offense, and we're gonna see if we can revamp this in a way that makes it even better than what I've had it doing. And it has not worked at all. It almost feels like a little bit of a lesson for Kevin to say, hey, but I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't need to scrap this thing. I don't need somebody else to come give me an idea of what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to put my foot down, and we're going to get this thing going in the right direction. It feels like it's almost an error in that he's too willing to just be like, well, yeah, maybe somebody else can help us improve, and not knowing that he's just the right guy for the job. Like, I hope that's the lesson he took out of this.
Yeah, and there, you always get these things like, well, he won't give up play calling and he won't do this. Like Stefanski, some egomaniacal tyrant. Yeah. But like, obviously, he's coming off his second Coach of the Year award. He could have easily been like, no, we don't need to change anything. We got this. He was willing to bring new voices in to collaborate and try to create something better. But maybe it was just too much all at once. Maybe it should have been implemented like baby steps, weave it into his system instead of this whole new operation. And then you don't get anybody healthy and you don't get to practice it. And then next thing you know, all the lights are on and you're on stage and it's just, it's not there. So, I'll be interested to see how much of it truly changes. How comfortable is Watson under center? How comfortable is he turning his back to the defense? Like there's a lot of question marks with this game.
Yeah, I think that I was in favor of the change because they were trying to put everything around the investment that they made at quarterback. But yeah, it just didn't work. And again, like you said, can that be the lesson learned? Sure. I hope that lesson is learned and they switch things back and they figure out how to get things rolling. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Casey. The whole Stefanski's this ego, like him and Van Pelt are friends, and he fired him. He fired Alex Van Pelt because he wanted to change what he was doing, but he's got too big of an ego. Like, it's the craziest. I don't understand where that argument's just not based. There's just no fact there. I don't get it.
Well, we're going to find out, and we're going to see it. We're going to see if anything actually looks different, because I think the other side of the story is this. Let's just take the first part of last year. There were moments where Deshaun Watson looked good and comfortable in Kevin Stefanski's system. So maybe the whole idea that it needed to change isn't there. But again, it's all going to fall on 4. And we'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about some of the exciting things going on for the Browns today. And again, you guys have already hit on it a little bit, but let's talk about some of these guys that are coming back that we haven't really seen this year. And it starts on that offensive line where Jack Conklin is going to be out there after the wildest string of he can't play injuries. Jack Conklin's going to be back on the field. He's going to be starting at right tackle. And so you'll have Jed Wills and Conklin starting at tackle. You have DeJuan Jones available off the bench. But with the way things have gone for this offensive line to start this year, I think we're all pretty pessimistic on how they play. But if Jack Conklin, and I think I've been on as hard on him as anybody, because this whole injury thing has just been driving me up a wall. But if he goes out there and he's ready to go and he's ready to play, he's a boost to this offensive line. And so getting just one guy out there that can provide you that kind of boost can bring up the level of everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that position group is more about cohesion than any other. So it's about getting reps and time on task and being there and in there together. So they've just had a lot of moving parts. So it's going to take them a while to get on track. But the more talent you can get on the field, the better. And if Conklin is getting a start at right tackle, I would love to see some jumbo formation in the red zone. Let's get my guy DeWan to touchdown. Let's
Yes.
overload.
Go.
I think that if you're going to bring him in as the extra heavy, I think you should let him post up on someone and bring down 6. I think that'd be a huge morale booster right there.
Dude, now
Are we calling a DeWan Jones touchdown in this game?
I'll do it. Yeah.
I've never wanted something more in my entire life now than that. But I mean, I just think about, like, I've talked about it a little bit this week on Sports for CLE, like with against the Jags when they were coming out there and they were putting Zenter and Harris and they were putting 2-3 extra big bodies out there. And it's like, what if one of those guys is Zenter and the other one is DeWan Jones and you go under center? I'm just saying, man, it can't be worse than what they're doing.
We'll find that out. I think the other name that a lot of people are going to be excited to see, and we'll see what kind of playing time he gets.
Yeah.
But the Cleveland Browns second-round pick from this year, Michael Hall, is officially reinstated and back in as he will be at least active for this game against the Eagles. Again, he is a rookie, and he has not, he's been out on the suspension list for the first 5 weeks of the season. So we don't know how quickly Jim Schwartz and Kevin Stefanski are going to get him out on the field. But this is a guy that people said a lot of things about. People used a lot of big phrases to describe Michael Hall and the way he looked throughout training camp with the Cleveland Browns. They compared him to some pretty wild names as he was out there practicing.
Yeah.
So he is going to be active in this game. Are we expecting to see a little bit of a dose of Michael Hall? And are we excited to see him out there?
Oh, I'm very excited for sure. I think he could give you a boost on the interior, give you some quickness. You also get Mo Hurst back, who kind of gives you those same elements. So if you can manage to get Philadelphia into obvious passing situations, I think that's a key thing. Get those guys on the field, get them some reps, let them see if they can give you some juice. I'll say this, man. Philadelphia on both sides of the ball, they're huge in the trenches. Those are big guys. But you will have a speed element on your side with Michael Hall. I'd like to see them implement that and try to get him free. You're going to have some one-on-one matchups there and just kind of get his beak wet, man. It's time. Your second round pick, obviously the suspension comes. You could have used that a couple of times during those first 5 games. So just see what you have. At this point, Schwartz is aggressive as can be, and that's the perfect type of defensive tackle for an aggressive defense. So it's all about getting Philadelphia in obvious passing situations and kind of unleashing that pass rush.
And it kind of hints a little bit that they at least expect either him or Hurst to play some serious snaps with Quentin Jefferson being inactive and being the healthy scratch. I think that really grabbed my attention right away. He's really struggled as a run defender, so it's not like the end of the world or anything that they're sitting that veteran, but it they got 2 other defensive tackles back and then they sit that guy. I mean, it kind of tells you at least what they hope will happen today. And if this season's starting to turn into like a oh crap season, then finding out what you got in Michael Hall is very important to me. So I mean, even if it's like 15, 20 snaps, I'd just love to see exactly what he can do. Because like Casey said, it's not like they're up there against a bunch of nobodies on that offensive line on the interior. So it'd be very interesting to see what he can do.
Well, let's talk about the Browns' opponent as we are about 40 minutes away now from kickoff in Philadelphia. And it is this Philadelphia Eagles team that, from everything I gather from the folks I talked about, whether it was Jack Fritz, who I talked to on the Doghouse this week, who covers the Eagles for Sports Radio WIP there in Philly, whether it's just some buddies that are Philly fans. Vibes are low in Philly this year. I think this is a game of bad vibes between how things are going in Cleveland. And even though Philly's 2-2, they have not been off the start that they've been hoping for. Jalen Hurts has not looked great to start this year. Obviously, they've battled injuries. Their defense has not looked great to start this year. The pass rush has been terrible in Philadelphia. And they've really had trouble kind of all over the place. So I was told I was told that if the Phillies lost to the Mets, to expect a real weird vibe in Lincoln Financial Field for the Eagles and the Browns. Well, that's what happened. And so let's just start on the defensive side of the ball, because in my head, I think coming into this, I think of the Eagles and I think of a really good defensive line. I think of a team that's going to be hard to run the ball against. I think of a team that can get after the quarterback. And I think of some big name players in that defensive backfield, whether it's CJG or whether it's Darius Slay, players that can make plays. So when you look at the Browns offense going up against this Philly defense, guys, where do you see areas that worry you that Philly's going to bring a little pressure or whatever they're going to do? And where do you see areas that you think the Browns can exploit?
Well, I'll start with the inside and go out. I think Jordan Davis on Nick Harris, I think that scares me to death. He is a massive human being. He can occupy 3 or 4 blockers if he needs to. And then Jalen Carter on Michael Dunn, which I thought it was going to be Zach Zinter, which had me way more worried. Just, Zach Zinter's had a crazy introduction in the NFL. You go from Dexter Lawrence to Christian Wilkins, Daron Payne, and then Jalen Carter. Mercifully, now Michael Dunn will take the bullet this week. But their interior, it's Georgia East. Look at that defense, just a bunch of Georgia studs. If you can keep contained on the end. Huff's kind of disappointed. I know they went and got him this offseason. He hasn't really produced yet, but they're fast. When I look at their backfield, though, their defensive backfield, you're going to see a lot of 2 rookies today, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Like, I think that's, if you could take advantage of something, that might be it. You got 2 rookies out there. You got some experienced receivers. But can you have time to throw the football? Can you manufacture time? Can you move the pocket? What can you do to slow down this pass rush? Implement a running game. We keep saying it week in, week out. You got to stop with this 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8. Like, it's just, we're spinning our wheels. We're going to be 3 and out. We've had 59 possessions this year, and 19 of them have ended in 3 and out. That's 1/3 of your possessions. You can't live like that. So you got to find ways to extend drives. And for me, it's starting with the running game, but they're stout up front. So you have to be really tight in your scheme and pick and choose your spots. Would love to see the screen game get off the ground today. That'd be something that they really need to implement. And even if it's in Njoku, whatever you got to do, you got to manufacture yards and keep it easy and just kind of just stay on the field for the love of God. We got to help our defense out as much as possible. So if I'm looking at that interior, if I'm looking at the defense of the Philadelphia Eagles, the defensive interior is what scares me the most.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Just a lot of it with these moving parts on the offensive line. Like, I think they're better. Like, I like Michael Dunn out there a little bit more than Zach Zinter because it's just been a crazy ride for him. I still like him long term, but Nick Harris, like Nick Harris is a really good athlete at that position, but he's a small center. And saying that Jordan Davis is a massive human might be an understatement. Like, that dude will, if you just let him bull rush you into the backfield, Nick Harris will be in Deshaun Watson's lap often. Like, that is going to be an issue if you don't try to double him there. So it's all about, well, if we're doubling him there, the other 3 guys have got to be able to win one-on-one successfully so that they can try to occupy Jordan Davis. And that whole concept really does concern me. But yeah, I mean, I like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean a lot, but hey, I mean, you got some rookies out there. I always like at least testing a rookie early in the game and seeing what's going on there. And I'm still worried about their outside rushers. I know that Huff has, like you said, he hasn't been what they thought they were getting, but you got Jack Conklin for the first time in over 13 months out there on the field. And that concerns me a little bit to run him out there and just until he settles in and plays, and looks like he's playing well and looks like he's got his feet under him and he's moving well. I'm going to be nervous about what's going on that side.
Well, Casey, I think you hit on such a good point. And one thing the Browns have got to get figured out, and maybe this is going to go back to what we talked about before, which is just re-implementing a little bit more of a Kevin Stefanski style. I know when we're talking about you don't have Nick Chubb, that's such a difference maker. And we'll talk about Nick Chubb in a minute because good news there for next week. But there's only 3 teams in the NFL that have rushed the ball less than the Cleveland Browns, and that's Tennessee, Atlanta with Bijan Robinson. is wild, and Vegas. Those are the only 3 teams that have run the ball less times than the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are very close to the bottom. I want to say they're like 6th or 7th in rushing yards from the bottom, in rushing yards. So this is easily a bottom 10 rushing offense, guys. And they just have never been able to find a way to get that going. So, Casey, back to your point on you got to find a way to get ahead of the sticks a little bit. You can't be constantly fighting 2nd and 10 and 3rd and 10 because you're just going to lose those battles more than you're going to win them. When the rushing game just hasn't been there the way that you would have hoped that it would be there. And hey, listen, maybe Jack Conklin makes a fix there. Maybe even Michael Dunn makes a little bit of a fix there. But even if they don't, what are some of the areas? What are some of the things they can do, the wrinkles they can throw in that are basically like kind of like rushing style passing plays when you need just grabbing 3 or 4 yards on first down just to get something positive going? How can they implement those kind of plays into this offense?
2 words, David Njoku. I mean, I'm leaning on that.
The Chief.
He's the easiest person in the world to get the ball to, and he does so much damage after the catch. For me, last year when they failed to be able to run the football over the back half of the season, he was the extension of the run game. He was your way to be physical, as you know, by getting the ball to him, letting him do damage. I figure that has to be it. And also, we're talking a lot of this. If we're going back to Kevin Stefanski's offense, well, we'll manufacture yards that way. It'll be a lot of quick, easy stuff, and then maybe you can get some more wide zone type stuff going, just more stuff. Because when I think of Kevin Stefanski's offense, the thing that always flashes me is everything looks the same until it's not. You know, you're able to sell things. When you're in shotgun all the time, it's hard to sell. It's hard to sell that you're going to be a running threat. And especially if you don't have a dynamic tailback that can really strike fear in the heart of defenses and they can play you differently. But when you're under center, it'll look more the same. And linebackers have to play honest, you know, and that could open up things on the second level. So for me, it's just going to be a screen game, draws. I'm going to run it with Watson. Like you got to do whatever you got to do at this point to manufacture and just get out of this 3rd and forever, because we're seeing what it is.
He's not a running back. He told us that.
Well, he's going to have to be this week. It's a death sentence, you know. When your offensive line is struggling to find answers against the blitz and stunts, and the Eagles they have the 3rd most stunts in the league per game. Well, they're going to get the number 1 this week, because if you just see how the Browns handle stunts, you're going to be sending people. So when you have an offensive line that's having trouble identifying those things and a quarterback not finding answers, you can't be in 3rd and long. That is a death sentence. So whatever you got to do, and I'd like to see if I keep saying it. We don't see it, and it hasn't really. Even when they've gotten him in, Deonta Foreman's not been making the impact I thought he could make. But you got to be powerful. You got to find a way to rotate your backs in a way that kind of keeps defenses uneasy. And they only struck that balance once, and that was against Jacksonville. Since then, it's looked pretty vanilla. So they got to stick with it too. You know, like I know it sounds crazy, but you just don't beat yourself this week. You know, no turnovers. Run the football, control the clock as much as possible, and give your defense a shot.
I think the old adage, take what the defense gives you, really comes into play, especially early in this game, because I understand when you're down and you're in some of these, like, you know, you're down a couple scores in the second half, you got to try to be vertical and push the thing down. I understand those aspects of it, but if that defense is giving you a 2-yard crossing route that can be a 3 or 4 yard gain, or they're not covering that tight end as he floats out of the backfield, or the running back, the screen game is what I was going to say until Casey said it. So those things, you just got to manufacture touches to your best playmakers. Get the ball out of Watson's hands quickly. You know, even if early in the game they're not getting a ton of yards after catch, but they're trying to get those yards after catch. Him holding onto the football and trying to read a defense is god awful. It is not working. I don't want him back there holding. I want him to get to the back of his drop and throw the ball. That is where you need to be today. You need to get it to Njoku, Judy, Cooper. Let those guys in space do some, you know, what they do and run the football. I think you'll be in a lot better spot if you can do those things.
All right, so we're about a half hour away from kickoff. We're going to take a quick little pause here in the middle of our show just to remind you that our pregame show here is brought to you by Core Home Fitness. And listen, if you haven't gotten over to corehomefitness.com yet, Get over there. Look at that right there. You see him on the screen, the adjustable dumbbells. A lot of people are like, man, I don't want to go buy a whole dumbbell set. It takes up like a whole wall in a room. I don't have that kind of space. Now, listen, the adjustable dumbbells, what Core Home Fitness is known for, 2 little stands. You can give yourself a hard workout. You can lift the heavy weights, or you can take it easy, take a little light day, and go ahead and just get the workout in, adjust those things left and right. Some of the coolest fitness equipment, not just the adjustable dumbbells, but everything that Core Home Fitness has to offer to make it easy to work out, get in shape without having to outfit your entire house or your entire basement with just big clunky workout equipment. You can get all that stuff at Core Home Fitness, just really revolutionary stuff that they have to make getting in shape and staying in shape really easy. So if you want to make that your goal, if you want to say, hey, listen, I live in Northeast Ohio or wherever I live, it's going to be winter, it's going to be cold. I don't want to be out as much as possible. I want to be in my house. Outfit your home with all the great stuff at Core Home Fitness. Get to corehomefitness.com. Check it out today. And like you see right on the screen, bring the gym home to you. All right, so let's go over to the other side, guys, where, again, we've talked about a little bit about that Browns offense and what we want to see. A lot of what we talked about leads into, I think, a theme for the Cleveland Browns defense. And a lot of what we talked about with the offense is you got to stay on the field. You got to find ways to get ahead of the sticks. You got to find ways, even if a drive results in a punt, if that punt happens from midfield, as opposed to after 3 plays, you gave your defense a minute over there on the sideline. I think a theme that we've seen from this defense this year, guys, is that they've started games pretty well. The defense has looked pretty good to start games. When they've made big plays, it tends to have happened early in the game. But it seems like they are just beaten and worn down as the game goes on because they are just on the field so incredibly much. So in this game, when you look at what the Eagles are getting back, guys, obviously Jalen Hurts poses a threat in and of himself. But when you look at now, we're going to have A.J. Brown out there. You're going to have Devontae Smith out there. You're going to have Lane Johnson on that offensive line who's out there blocking either Zadarius Smith or Myles Garrett. How should the Browns defense be lined up ready to attack this Eagles offense?
I would love if Schwartz would travel his cornerbacks this week. For me, I just look at your body types, your skill sets, and A.J. Brown is a phenomenal receiver, but he's not beating you with blazing speed. He's physical. He's physical at the catch point. He bullies cornerbacks. And for me, I think Martin Emerson was kind of engineered to play against that exact type of wide receiver. And then you got Devonta Smith, who's all twitched up. I would put Denzel on him and just let it roll like that. Lane Johnson will be over on the right side, mostly Zadarius Smith. The matchup is Jordan Mailata and Myles Garrett. Mailata has been a huge surprise for them. I mean, they ex-rugby player, no collegiate experience. Just they drafted him and they developed him, and he's been serviceable his entire career. But you're playing Myles Garrett. Is Myles as close to healthy as he can be? Because he could take over this game. When I think about Jalen Hurts, he hasn't been the runner since 22. He hasn't been the same kind of runner. He was so dangerous, threatening the line of scrimmage with his legs, opening everything else up. We all know about the tush push, which is the worst name of any play I've ever heard. Like the brotherly shove, it was right there. They should have ran with it. They went with tush push, but they really haven't been relying on that in the same way that they were in the past. Obviously, not having Kelsey is a big blow, but I'm all my eggs are in the making Jalen Hurts beat me with his arm. If he does that, fair play. But if you just allow this Eagles team to come downhill because they're bigger than you and just run the ball with Saquon, it's going to be a long afternoon. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. The Browns are giving up 5. This could get ugly, so you got to cut that off from the jump street. So, and outside of Dalvin, you're really not stout up front. So you better be in your run fits. So you better stay in your have gap integrity and just be patient in your run game and really try to manage them to keep them to 3-4 yards. Because if they start ripping off chunks, it's going to get ugly quick.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts will give you a few opportunities for turnovers. That's who he has been the last couple of seasons. So I'm with you 100%, Casey. If I can put the ball, the bulk of this game and that offense on his shoulders, and I can pressure him without leaving guys wide open because I blitzed everybody. If you can, pressure him at a good rate and make him hold on to the ball, not allowing him to have some easy answers with these wide receivers, he's going to give you a couple. He's going to throw one up. He might fumble one when he tries to scramble too late. Like, I think you've got to put everything on his shoulders. I think you can, I know that I like the guards but there's a drop off without Jason Kelsey there. I like Cam Jurgens, but there's a drop off there. If you can find a way to put some pressure on him, maybe take advantage of some opportunities and give the offense a short field, you're cooking with something there.
Okay, so you made a point there that I was thinking about earlier today. You talked about having the defensive backs travel, having the corners travel, and I actually think as daunting as the task is to cover AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, the Browns are a little bit, if they do that, they're kind of set up for these kind of guys. One thing we've seen so far this year, we've seen a little bit too much of Martin Emerson on the quick, shifty, speedy wide receivers. And Martin is not built for that. However, what Martin Emerson is built for and what he's shown to be built for, and I'm not saying he's going to shut him down by any stretch, but what he's shown to be built for is a receiver like AJ Brown, a big, physical, strong, wants to push you around kind of a receiver. He's a bully of a wide receiver. That's what makes him so good. Martin Emerson is not easy to bully. And that in his career has been one of the highlights, is he can really out physical a physical receiver. On the other side, you've got Denzel Ward, and he can stay with the speedy guys. He can stay with those quick, fast receivers like we're going to see in Devontae Smith. So it does feel like that has to be the game plan coming in here, is Martin Emerson. AJ Brown's got to get a heavy dose of Martin Emerson in this game. And then Denzel Ward's got to take the speed on the other side.
Yeah. If you can engineer those two matchups, I like your long-term success. They're going to get plays. Those are good. Those are very good players. AJ is going to get a few. Devontae Smith, they'll run a ton of crossers with him. How healthy are those two? I think that's the big key. We're talking about a hamstring injury for Brown that he got in practice after the first week, and he kept him out for a good bit. So I don't know if he's going to they're going to full go. He's going to be out there 85% of the snaps, or if they're going to try to pepper him in over the course of the game. But I think Martin Emerson is a fantastic matchup, and it'd be a great way to get his confidence back, because he's not been playing at the same fire. And I don't know if he's battling some underlying issues as far as injuries. Because I know he's came up lame in a couple games, but he's never, he's not missed any time. But he's been playing off the line of scrimmage. When you see, he's a physical guy who likes to mug you at the line and kind of make life hard on you and get hands on you. And when you get free releases on him, especially if you're one of those quick twitched up guys, you can get loose on him. But AJ Brown's not that guy. So I honestly, I love that matchup. I actually highlighted that in one of my 3 matchups the Browns cannot afford to lose. We'll see. The Paris Campbell was elevated to their active roster. I could see him snagging a few today. He's been a guy that I've always been intrigued with, but he's always flashed and never really had long-term success. So they might try to work him into the game. Goedert's another guy like that. It's a solid tight end. He doesn't get any of the pub there, but he can cause problems. So the Eagles have enough stuff, but from no matter what, don't let Saquon beat you. That's the surest way to lose this game, is letting him run wild. So focus all your efforts on that and just allow your back end to play lockdown man defense. And I don't know how much of your change-up pitches you're going to be seeing today. They haven't been too successful implementing those. But if there was ever a week to play man and travel, this is it.
Especially considering the issues the injuries they've got at safety. A lot's going to fall on the corners. I mean, you're talking 3 of your top 4 safeties are not playing today. Like no Thornhill, Delpit, Hickman, like those guys are out even more than falls on these corners. But yeah, Mike, I think you said it perfectly. Like these 2 players in Ward and Emerson were put together to be able to go against, diverse skill sets like you're going to see today. This is where you make that money. That's where, the top athlete that they've got at corner, Denzel, goes against their top athlete in terms of twitch and speed. And you just got to find ways to get some of that confidence back in Martin Emerson. And I think going against a bigger, more physical wide receiver, as opposed to trying to cover someone like Devontae, like if you put him on Devontae Smith and he gets burned, I don't know that the dude's ever going to recover, because it's just been so bad for him getting burned by some of these speedy. I mean, he got burned by Dimey Brown last week, but whatever. But yeah, no, you've got to do something, and you've got to let these corners take a lot of the burden for that defense this week, because the back end, I don't have very many high hopes for the safety room today.
Well, and that was going to be the next question is, Casey, you've talked a lot about Saquon Barkley, and we know the Browns' rush defense hasn't been great, but you're going to be without in this game one of your best rush defenders, as Grant Delpit's really, really good at getting in and stopping the run and making life difficult on running backs. So again, without Thornhill, without Hickman, without Delpit, especially Delpit, you're going to have Rodney McLeod out there, and I think you're going to have DeAnthony Bell out there as well. Those guys are going to have to play a little bit over their head to make some plays in the run game.
Yeah, without Delpit, DeAnthony Bell is going to have to be the extra guy that lives in the box. That's who you're going to be bringing down. And he's physical. He can handle some of that, but he's not the dynamic athlete that Grant Delpit is. And Delpit's got so much range, and he's wonderful at the point of attack. You're not. I mean, I know he's a safety, but he's also a linebacker. You know what I mean? So you're going to miss his presence. McLeod, though, ex-Eagle, this could be a revenge game. Rodney McLeod, Jordan Hicks. You know, if we could, you know, might be they made him inactive. So we're looking at, man. So it's just going to be Bush and JOK. Think we see Bucky Watson today?
Maybe. I'm very interested to see if you see any Mahmoud Diabate this week. He gets active. I believe he's active. Is he not? Did I?
Well, you saw something I missed because I didn't know Hicks was inactive. That's a bummer.
Hicks is the only linebacker.
Could have been a big revenge game for him and McLeod. So it's on you, Rodney McLeod. The revenge factor falls in your lap today.
Good luck.
Well, boys, we are again. We're about 20 minutes away from kickoff here. As you're on the OBR pregame show, I do want to remind people before we get to the last part of the show here, and we're going to take you for about another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll let you go. Grab your beers, grab your drinks, get yourself set up on your favorite spot, wherever you got the best butt grooves on the couch. Get yourself set up and ready to go for the Cleveland Browns versus the Philadelphia Eagles. We do want to remind you later tonight. I don't know the exact time, 7 or 7:30. I never remember which one. But keep an eye on the socials because we'll post it. But we will have the OBR post-game show where we will break down everything you see out there. It is 7 o'clock. There we go. Thank you. Sorry. It's like I don't do this all the time. 7 o'clock tonight, we'll do the OBR post-game show. We'll break down everything that we saw in the Browns versus the Eagles today in Philadelphia. So make sure you are tuned in on YouTube and Twitch and X and everywhere that you want to watch that. But guys, let's give some final thoughts here. Let's give some keys to this game. Maybe both offensively and defensively. Casey, if the Browns, it's a weird situation that we find ourselves in because we still have this team that we know can be good because we've seen a lot of these guys be good. If the Browns are going to it feels like every week is a chance to right the ship, and the ship has been wrong every week. If the Browns are going to right the ship this week, what are the keys? What are the keys offensively and defensively for them to do that?
Well, I focus on the middle 8 minutes, man. It seems like you said earlier, Mike, the defense comes out and they play hard and they play with fire and enthusiasm, and it just wanes. And usually by the last 4 minutes of the first half, something breaks and they give up 2 back-to-back drives, and then you're in a deficit. And then for everything the Browns offense is good at, scripting drives at the beginning of games, they don't do that in the beginning of the third quarter. For whatever reason, it's just it's a black hole. They don't give you anything in the third quarter. So it's the middle 8 minutes of the game. The last 4 of the first half, first 4 of the second quarter. That's where if you can keep it close through that point right there, you have a chance on the back end. Because usually by that time the defense is back and playing with fire again, and they're able to contain. But it's the offense giving the defense something. Give them some juice. Give them some reason to go out there and play with their hair on fire. You know, we have yet to see it. You need to play all 3 phases, and I don't need all 3 phases to be amazing. I need the defense to be amazing, but I need the other 2 just to be competent. If you can do that, I think you can. The Eagles are a flawed team. They are very talented, yes. They're at home. They have that going for them, but they have flaws. Like there's a reason their fan base is down on them. You know, they've been up a game, down a game, up a game, down a game. And believe this, if they lose to the Browns today, I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Sirianni was fired on Monday morning. I mean, that's just where that team's at mentally. So, you know, you can make them doubt themselves, because they're not the winning juggernaut that they were 2 years ago. They've been up and they've been a roller coaster. So it's the middle 8 minutes of the game, man. Control that. Get to that point, control that. And when you come on the other side, create doubt in their minds, and then just make the play. We've been in that position. You've had 2 games back to back. Now, not last week. Last week was a dumpster fire. It was like the Globetrotters versus the Generals. We're not even talk about it. But if you look at that New York game and the Jacksonville game, you had 5 opportunities to go win the game. Shot yourself in the foot every single time. Put yourself in that position today and make the play.
Man, before you cut in, what you just hit on there, Casey, I think is just such a difference in this team versus previous years. It's something they got to get back to. But that middle 8, Kevin Stefanski, in his 4 years plus of being a head coach in the NFL, especially before this year, has made a living on killing teams on those double score situations, grabbing a score before the half and then getting the ball back and scoring after the half. He's been so good at that, and his teams have been good at that, and they have been so bad at it this year. I think they give up like 3 before the half last week. It's been such a disaster in that area that the black hole is just so fitting. They've got to get that. They got to get back to that kind of play, and you can't be giving up the game at halftime.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That if you go into that, then you need to bench your quarterback at halftime. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that at some other time. Anyway, fingers crossed. But for me, I think it stays with staying ahead of the chains on offense and just finding ways to be in 3rd and 5 or less. I mean, you're in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 longer. I see Mick's comment on YouTube talking about 1st and 20 all the time, like because of penalties and things like that. That's a massive problem. They've really had issues where they've killed momentum with exactly what he's saying. You're getting down, you're getting into territory, and then all of a sudden you take a sack and you got a face mask on your running back, and you lost a scoring opportunity. Like, don't beat yourself on offense. Like, there's going to be some opportunities against this defense. You should have the opportunity to make some plays against this secondary. Don't make the plays for them. Like, just don't make the bonehead plays and stay ahead of the chains. And honestly, I'm going to go on a limb here and say the key to the defense is a defensive touchdown. Like, that's where I think you're at. Like, I think the defense not only has to be opportunistic, they have to find a way to either turn a turnover into points themselves or make it just impossible for the offense to not score off of that. So just don't be dumb, I think.
That should be the sign in the locker room. It's like the Ted Lasso believe sign. Ours just says, don't be dumb. Just don't be dumb. I'm going to throw one more in here. And again, was what we like to do and how we like to analyze and how we like to really dive deep into things. Mine's going to be the simple one, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways. The quarterback has to show us that he's not hot garbage. The quarterback has to show us that he's not trash. The quarterback
that would help.
Show us that he's not the worst quarterback in the NFL. The quarterback has to show us that he can be worth one of the $230 million that we are paying him, not 230, just one. Just give us one of the 230. And that would be great. And I know we like to dive in, and I know everybody likes to say, well, it's not just on him. And God, every time you bring up Deshaun's name, people freak out. It's not just him. It's not just, yeah, we know the offensive line has not been good. The receivers, he threw a touchdown pass that Jerry Jeudy dropped, like an easy touchdown that Jerry Jeudy dropped last week. He threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Amari Cooper that got called back because of a penalty in Vegas. There have been moments, but he's also just been hot garbage. And he's been confused, and he holds onto the ball entirely too long. He doesn't throw to what he anticipates. He throws to what he sees. And in the NFL, when you throw to what you see, by the time the ball gets to what you see is no longer what you see. And he has to play better. And again, I'm happy to listen to all the reasons why it's other people's faults, but when you're the franchise quarterback and when you got brought in here to be the franchise quarterback, there's no more excuses anymore. We gave you excuses year one because you had the suspension or because you hadn't played and then you played 6 games and we were like, he's probably going to look like trash. That's fine. Year 2, we gave you the excuse because you missed 11 games due to your suspension. Year 3, it was like, okay, you got to do something here, and then you have the shoulder injury. Now we're in year 4, and we're not worth a fraction. We're not worth a fraction of the contract yet. He's got to go out there today and look like he's worth the contract. Because if he doesn't, if he keeps playing the way he plays, and I don't mean to go on, sorry about the long rant here, but if he keeps playing the way he plays, they're not winning games. When your quarterback is the worst in football, you're going to lose games, and he's been the worst in football, and he has to be better.
Yeah, you have to not have to be better. You got to be an elevator. Like that's what the position calls for. And they can say the offensive line is bad. The offensive line wasn't good in Houston. I watched him elevate there, but we're so far removed from that I can't rely on that to allow this to keep happening. This has been, if you were to describe the Browns' offensive identity, the word ineptitude comes to mind. It's the most inept offense in the league, and you can't win games like that. I don't care how good your defense is. So it's a pulse, man. We need a pulse this week. We need a reason. But I don't know. I have 2 ways I see this game going. If Watson starts and finishes, I have a hard time believing you get over 20 points, and you're going to need over 20 points to win today. If you can keep it close going into halftime, and he's not playing well, you can kind of jerk that curtain. Sandman comes out with the hook. Put Winston in. I like our chances. I would love our chances if that happens.
Well, we'll see what happens. All right, boys, let's get everybody ready. Let's give everybody a couple minutes before kickoff to get themselves set up. Let's do the last thing here on the OBR Browns pregame show, and let's do our predictions for this game. Are the Browns going to score 20 points for the first time in 2024? Offensive juggernaut game incoming. Jacob, why don't you lead us off, man? What's your prediction for this game?
Nobody's going to like this. 27-13 Eagles. I just don't. I see a path for them to win. It's not impossible, but until I actually see it, I can't predict it.
Terrible at following the rules. You're getting 2 predictions. You're getting one if Watson starts and finishes, similar to what Jacob just said. You're looking at 27-10. If you pull them at halftime, you get Jameis out there. I think 24-21. I think that feels good for me.
Man, I want to come out. Wait, 24-21. If Jameis plays 24-21, what? Who?
Browns. The vibes. And then think about going in the next week at home with Jameis under center. You get Chubb back.
The vibes are immaculate. And Lincoln Financial Field burns to the ground.
Sirianni's gone.
Hell yeah.
Gone.
I'm going to say 21-9. 27-9. That was my prediction. I just until they show they can do it, I can't pick them to do it. So I think the Eagles take it. Every week I want to come into this and be like, all right, I feel good. It's Sunday morning. You can't. They haven't scored 20 points. Again, you called them inept. There is no identity on offense. And man, I want one to just appear so badly. Maybe this is the game where it does, but we will see. I think I'm rooting for Casey's scenario, though. So that's going to be, you just gave me something to look at. And now I have a real cheering interest in this game. I want to see things go down the way Casey said they were going to go down. All right. Remember, tonight at 7:00, we will have the OBR Browns post-game show where we will break down all the action from this impending game between the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles. So make sure you join us there. Until then, we're going to let you go watch the game. For Casey Kinnaman, for Jacob Roach, I am Michael Keefe. We'll see you for the post-game show. And until then, as always, no matter what, go Browns, everybody.
Go Browns.